Ethiopian forces tried to enter a camp. Human rights groups say the U.S.-backed Ethiopian troops increasingly target civilians in frustration over their failure to crack down on the Islamic Courts fighters. Nearly 7,000 people have lost their lives and thousands have been displaced since 2006, when Ethiopian soldiers forced the Islamic Courts movement out of power. Now, joining us from London, Io Johnson, political analyst. Now, the Ethiopian forces have killed 9 Somali civilians in their latest attack on Somali soil. There's a simple question here now. Why do you think the world media is not covering such events?
Well, it's like so many other events on the African soil. They're not being covered effectively, and that's to do with the fact that the Western media are not necessarily interested in such stories. They don't appeal to the masses in the Western Hemisphere. But in principle, I think a lot has got to be done by civil society groups, a lot by the African media themselves to push this story out, and more so to actually give the actual story that reflects the conditions on the ground and actually speaks on behalf of the people who, I must say, are being affected very, very much so, and daily, and their daily lives have been disrupted quite severely.
Now, where is the Somali violence headed? We are receiving reports of daily attacks and rising civilian casualties.
Well, the attacks themselves are quite serious. But where it's actually leading at the moment is everyone's guess. But the conditions are not very good. The fighting's been going on for some time, since back 2006, when the Ethiopian troops went and actually supported President Yusuf. And of course, we've seen that the Islamic clerics have not been very happy about that. They've actually stood their grounds, and they've been fighting quite a serious battle. So we do not have an end in sight. We've had many mediation talks, many agreements signed, but nothing's actually been kept. And it's reflective of the disillusionment of a lot of the communities on the ground in Somalia, and more so the fact that they think that they're being invaded by the Ethiopian troops, who themselves are supported by the United States.
Now, what's the core issue in the Somali politics today? Is there any hope for political reconciliation, especially given the recent attempt to bring the ruling group and the opposition together?
Well, again, with some of my statements I made earlier on, it's reflective of the fact that we've had many of these and many of such agreements, many of such talks, and never really materialized. We need meaningful diplomacy which involves probably the UN or the AU to take control of that land, take control of the negotiations, and I think the Somali people themselves need better, and they've not been having it so far. And I think all the communities that are involved, be it the Islamic clerics, be it the Eritrean-based alliance groups, or be it the government who's actually fighting the Islamic clerics, they've all got to be prepared to come to the negotiating tables and come up with some meaningful discussions. But at the moment, we're not seeing that, and that's a real concern.
Now, where does the Union of Islamic Courts stand in political negotiations?
Well, I think they're standing in a very strong light, because clearly they've shown that they're a force to be reckoned with. They represent a vast majority of the people of Somalia, and also the fact that they've not broken down as a unit, and they've continued showing that they've got some amount of resolution, but in saying that they've got limitations with costs, financial issues, but I think a negotiation package, be it with the Islamic courts and the government, would have to come to some pass, because the Somali people are suffering, and they've been suffering for some time to come, and if it continues like this, they will only continue to suffer, and it's not very good for Somalia and the people themselves.
Okay, thank you very much, Io Johnson, political analyst, for joining us from London.